Tanks were introduced to bring armor and mobile firepower forward with the formation, to open routes, to maintain tempo, and to force the enemy to react. But in Western Europe, 1944 to 45, an armored thrust did not fail because it ran out of ammunition. It failed when it lost tempo, stuck, broken down, out of contact. And when a single vehicle stopped, the entire formation rhythm was disrupted. That is why the tank crew loadout exists, to prevent that moment from ever happening. For the 4th Armored Division, firepower was mandatory, but it only mattered if it could be sustained through the tempo of the advance. That did not depend on how powerful the main gun was. It depended on 3 things: whether the vehicle could keep moving, whether the formation could maintain communication when it became stretched and dispersed, and whether the crew still had the capacity to operate after hours inside a cramped compartment, loud, hot, then cold. If even one of these failed, the firepower was still there. But in practice, it became useless, because it was no longer present at the moment it was needed. So this video does not look at the loadout as a loose list of equipment. It looks at the loadout as a system built to keep firepower present under real battlefield conditions. That system has 3 components: mobility, communication, and crew survival. We begin with the platform the unit uses to break through, the element that decides whether firepower arrives at the right place at the right time. Only after that do we move to the gear that keeps it operating and the personal equipment of each crew member. Item 1. Platform M4 Sherman. The M4 Sherman was not chosen because it was the most powerful tank. It was chosen because in 1944 to 45, it was the American tank that could be kept at the front continuously. Quick to repair, quick to replace, and present when infantry needed armored firepower alongside them. The Sherman was not pushed forward to hunt victories. It was pushed forward to shield infantry and open routes, to ensure the formation behind always had a way forward. The Sherman's main gun was used first to break target-level obstacles, machine gun nests, corners of buildings, firing points pinning down infantry. This was firepower that had to be present immediately, not something that could wait for artillery in the rear. The machine guns on the tank existed to keep enemy heads down for a few tens of seconds, long enough for infantry to cross open ground and maintain the tempo of the advance. When unavoidable, the gun still had to deal with enemy armor or anti-tank fire blocking the route. But that was not the primary job. Every minute pulled into a tank duel was a minute the corridor behind lost its rhythm. The moment a Sherman stopped in a narrow road, all of these roles disappeared instantly, and the axis behind it was locked. That is why the next part of the loadout is not about firepower. It is about what keeps the vehicle moving. Shared vehicle gear carried by the entire crew. Item 2. Vehicle Toolkit. The vehicle toolkit was carried by the crew because a tank had to operate continuously for many hours, and mechanical issues were inevitable. When small failures appeared, loose components, jammed mechanisms, minor breakdowns, this kit allowed the crew to fix the problem on the spot, so the vehicle was not removed from the tempo of the advance. In practice, many tanks were forced to stop not because they were hit, but because of a problem small enough to be repaired if tools were available. The vehicle toolkit existed to keep the Sherman moving with the formation, instead of becoming a bottleneck in the axis of advance. Item 3. Spare track links. Spare track links were carried by the crew to deal with broken or thrown tracks during movement. When a failure occurred, the spare links allowed repairs on site, so the vehicle did not stop in the middle of the route. Item 4. Fire extinguisher. Fire extinguishers were carried to deal immediately with fires inside the vehicle, caused by hits, overheating, or fuel leaks. Inside the confined space of a tank, a small fire could force the crew to abandon the vehicle within seconds. The fire extinguisher existed to stop the incident before it exceeded control and to keep the crew inside the tank. Item 5. Smoke candles. Smoke candles were carried to block observation when the vehicle was forced to stop or move slowly under enemy observation. When halted in open ground, at crossroads, or near enemy positions, smoke was used to cut direct line of sight, reducing the enemy's ability to aim accurately or adjust fire for a short but critical window. Item 6. Camouflage Net. Camouflage nets were carried to conceal the vehicle when it had to remain stationary for extended periods in areas exposed to observation or indirect fire. When stopped near the front line, at forest edges, or behind natural cover, the net was used to break up shape and reduce detection, preventing the tank from becoming a fixed target. Item 7. Tarp/canvas sheets. Tarps and canvas sheets were carried to cover the vehicle and equipment during prolonged bad weather. When rain, mud, or dust persisted, the canvas protected the interior, weapons, and gear from moisture and contamination, reducing wear and preventing malfunctions while the vehicle was stationary. Item 8. Ammunition storage set. The ammunition storage set was carried to store and manage all ammunition required on board during operations. This included main gun ammunition, machine gun ammunition, and personal weapon ammunition for the crew. Carrying and organizing all of it on the vehicle ensured ammunition was immediately available without dependence on instant resupply. Item 9. Jerry cans set. Jerry cans were carried to supplement water and fuel during extended operations or disrupted supply. When the vehicle had to stop for long periods, change positions repeatedly, or refuel off schedule, reserve cans allowed the crew to maintain basic operation without immediate external support. Item 10. Extra rations box. An extra rations box was carried to sustain the crew during prolonged operations or delayed resupply. When the crew could not leave the vehicle for extended periods, or when missions ran longer than planned, rations allowed them to maintain basic physical capacity. When a tank is knocked out, personal equipment becomes the only thing the crew has when leaving the vehicle. Item 11. Primary weapon. The primary weapon of a tank crew was not rigidly standardized. Depending on role, unit, and period, crew members could be equipped differently. In practice, many carried the M3 submachine gun because it was compact and easy to handle when exiting the vehicle. Others carried the M1 Carbine, offering better range and accuracy once outside the tank. There was no single mandatory weapon for the entire crew. What mattered was that each person carried a light weapon, sufficient for self-defense, when forced to leave the tank and face the battlefield directly. The primary weapon existed to give each crew member a short-term ability to protect themselves at the front line when operating outside the vehicle. Item 12. Sidearm. Each crew member carried an M1911A1 for situations where the primary weapon was no longer usable. When the main weapon ran out of ammunition, jammed, or could not be brought into action in time, the sidearm provided an immediate response. It was also carried for unavoidable situations, extremely close contact, restricted space, or moments when the crew had to defend themselves for a very short window. The sidearm existed to fill the final gap when all other options failed. Item 13. Grenades. Each crew member carried grenades to create space in moments when they were forced to abandon the vehicle or face danger at very close range. Fragmentation grenades were used to push back or disrupt enemy forces controlling the immediate area. Smoke grenades were used to block visibility for a short time, allowing withdrawal or a change of movement direction. Grenades existed to create a few critical seconds when no other options remained. Item 14. Tank crew uniform. The tank crew uniform consisted of herringbone twill coveralls, used as the primary working layer inside the vehicle. The fabric was light, breathable, and non-restrictive, suited for long periods of sitting and continuous operation in confined space. When conditions required, a wool tanker jacket was worn over the top to retain heat during extended stops or short periods outside the vehicle. This was not multiple separate outfits, it was a layered system. A breathable working layer inside, with an insulating layer added when needed, allowing the crew to adapt without changing clothing entirely. Item 15. Footwear. Footwear consisted of service shoes worn with wool socks. They were selected to work inside a cramped metal compartment without being bulky or obstructive. The shoes allowed stable pedal use, body rotation, and movement inside the vehicle, while remaining durable enough for short movements on foot after exiting the tank. Wool socks were worn to keep feet dry and temperature stable, maintaining sensation and mobility during long working periods. Item 16. Tanker helmet and communications set. The crew headgear was the tanker helmet, integrated with an internal communications set. It protected the head inside the confined metal interior and maintained constant communication between crew positions. Soft padding reduced impact from vehicle movement or firing, while allowing the use of headphones and microphone without interfering with operation. The communication system allowed orders and status updates to be exchanged in an environment where normal speech could not be heard. Item 17. Goggles. Goggles were used to protect the eyes from dust, debris, and strong wind. Especially during movement or when exiting the vehicle, they helped maintain stable vision in conditions that easily disrupted observation. Item 18. Gloves. Gloves were worn to protect hands while working inside the metal interior. They reduced injury from hot surfaces, sharp edges, and oil-covered components. They helped maintain grip and control, preventing minor injuries that could affect later actions. Item 19. Load-bearing belt rig. The belt rig was used to carry minimal personal equipment when forced to leave the vehicle. It kept ammunition, water, and essential items within easy reach while remaining compact. It did not interfere with movement in confined spaces. Item 20. Gas mask. A gas mask was carried for situations involving toxic smoke, tear gas, or chemical threat. Even though actual use was rare, it existed because doctrine of the period required readiness for gas warfare and to protect breathing in heavy smoke and dust environments. Item 21. Lensatic compass. A lensatic compass was carried to maintain direction when forced to leave the vehicle, or when visibility and terrain references were limited. It allowed basic navigation in situations where vehicles or guides could not be relied upon. Item 22. Wristwatch. A wristwatch was used to track time during operations, especially when external signals were unavailable. Knowing time helped maintain individual action rhythm and prevented disorientation during extended situations. Item 23. Individual first aid kit. An individual first aid kit was carried to treat personal injuries immediately before medical support became available. It existed to prevent minor wounds from becoming mission-ending injuries in the first moments after an incident. Item 24. Weapon cleaning kit. A weapon cleaning kit was carried to keep personal weapons functional, especially after exposure to dust, mud, or oil. It helped prevent jams and failures at moments when the weapon was needed. Item 25. M3 knife. The M3 knife was carried as a final multi-purpose tool, used for cutting, separation, or close-range self-defense when no other option remained. In addition, the tank commander often carried binoculars, specifically the M3 6x30, and a map case alongside the equipment already listed. The tank crew loadout was not built to optimize for a single moment of victory. It was built to endure a continuous chain of imperfect situations that unfold on the battlefield. From the platform and shared vehicle equipment to the items each crew member carried personally, every piece existed to address a very specific limitation. The vehicle can break down, visibility can disappear, communication can be lost, and people can be forced out of the only protection they have. There is nothing redundant here, and nothing is carried for display. Every item answers a simple question. When things go wrong, what allows the soldier to still react? That is how this loadout was built, not around isolated firepower, but around the ability to continue surviving and operating at the very front line.